we got to open with the Eagles, and so this morning, a board member, other than the chair, Paul Fitzpatrick, actually has had something to say. Ben Wyatt came out today on ABC Radio, and this is what he said. He said there would be change at the club as they look to handle the fallout. Quote, any decisions we make around that will be announced as appropriate by the chair at the time they're due. Mr Wyatt said 2018 Premiership mentor Simpson was the right man to lead the rebuild, despite the coach's sixth 100-point loss in the space of the past 2 seasons. This has been Wyatt's quote, Adrian. Adam Simpson has been a successful coach for a long time at West Coast Eagles. He does have my support because he identifies exactly where we are and what we need to achieve. Mr Wyatt also backed CEO Trevor Nisbet to remain as the chief executive, saying ultimately we could sack everybody and I'd still have the same list of players. I'm very alive to the issues and very alive to the fact that there's a fan base that's incredibly disappointed in the way we play footy. No one is more upset and determined to resolve that than members of the board. Barra, it's been a big couple of days. There's been former players coming out. I thought Chris Mortimer's comments were telling. Jake's been in hospital. Chris was upset that the club hadn't contacted him earlier. I will say that this is just one thing following another, and I think it's indicative of where the club's at the moment. I don't think it helps. We saw Adam Simpson just front a news conference. He's been pretty stoic. He's fronted every single conference he has to. He hasn't dodged any. Paul Fitzpatrick, we've heard from him at the weekend, apologising for the darkest day and one of the darkest days in the club's history.
It's definitely not the darkest day.
It's one of them.
Yeah, it's one of them, yeah.
Oh, well, you don't reckon it is?
No, the whole drug saga was way beyond this.
Okay, yeah, that's a fair comment.
No question. Captain gets sacked, blah, 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 yeah. So,
why haven't we heard from the CEO, Trevor Nisbet?
Yeah, well, that's a good point, actually. And I feel like with the pressure that's being put on, he'll be the next one to put his head up. I notice they have, and Ben Wyatt is a good friend of mine, and he is on the board there. Let's deal with them in order. They have dismissed the strength and conditioning boss. Not dismissed him, sorry. Yep. Sorry, he's decided to step away at the end of the season.
So Warren Kofod.
Who's one of the world's best blokes, Warren Kofod. He's been there for 8 years, so I wouldn't think that he was the guy causing the problems.
Well, Will Schofield didn't think so because he came out last night and said that he was fantastic during my career and I can't believe he's going.
Unless he's changed, unless he's got, and I think that he probably wants to get back to it. He's Victorian, wants to get back there. He used to be in the army, was at Richmond, ripper bloke. So the timing of that was a little bit tricky. Simmo, impossible to remove Simmo. In fact, I think they need Simmo. They need someone with that stability and that knowledge and that background to take them through. I don't know who's going to come in because they've got 2 more years of pain at least.
But are the players playing for him, Barra? Because from what I saw against the Sydney Swans, they're not playing for their club.
Well, he got asked that today, and I think he sort of batted it away. I feel like they still love him. When you're a premiership coach, it's pretty hard to fall out of love with him. I mean, Dom Sheed...
Not a premiership coach for all of them, though.
Well, Dom Sheed was probably the main... Is he the guy you're alluding to in terms of seniors? Who are the senior players you're talking about then?
Playing for them? Well, I think Shuey had a crack at the weekend.
He was like the boy with the dyke. He's putting fingers everywhere and he's trying to plug all these holes.
So players, I think players like... So Tim Kelly had plenty of the ball, but I'm talking about the defensive running. And I'm not sure if that was there for Gaff.
I reckon you should name
Kelly.
names.
I've just named them. Gaff, Kelly, I think.
Sheed, you'd have to say.
Yeah.
Sheed is a premiership hero.
I'm not putting Shuey in there because I think he But I'm saying the others.
Kelly not defensively, yeah. So that's what I'm saying, because that's why I was a bit miffed with Scotty Cummings coming out and smashing the club
and not naming players.
Yeah, and the next question was, well, you've watched the game, you know who you're talking about. Who you're talking about? Didn't have the whatevers to say these are the blokes. Scotty, who didn't train very hard himself, let's be honest. You know what I mean? He's saying the effort wasn't there. He wasn't exactly the biggest effort guy himself. More clubs than Tiger Woods. I love the bloke, but if you're going to smash the club, you want to have the courage to just go all the way. You may as well say, look, it's this bloke, and this bloke.
All right.
And so we're saying it. So Sheed was probably the ones he was talking about, one of the guys he's talking about. 2018 Premiership hero, obviously still going to be in love with Simmo. We saw Junior Rioli post a photo of him hugging Adam Simpson as a sign of support, didn't we? He's even left the club and he still loves the bloke. Mm-hmm. So I think, and the thing about Simmo that people need to understand is, I'm telling you, we need him. I think he needs to change his demeanour. I think a couple of journalists have got to him now, and he's sort of biting, and he's not being received. I think he needs.
But isn't this a time for the CEO to come out and step in and have it, put some skin in the game, because he has not been heard from.
He's got to put his head up next. That'll be the sure. But
because Simpson's wearing it all.
Yeah, and I think they should put up an assistant coach at post-match press conferences, or change the face, change the message. I actually reckon Simmo should have a month off, but he won't, because one, he'll feel like he's leaving a sinking ship. You know, boys, I'm going for a holiday while you guys keep fighting away. They've got 9 more games. They could lose 21 in a row. You know, like, there's still a lot to be done.
And so one thing before we get on to Jake Waterman, I will say that Luke Shuey, you know, and good on him for coming out and fronting the media, saying that there will be a response against St Kilda. Well, I hope there is, because he'll have to wear that if there isn't.
Well, fortunately, they're not a high-scoring team. You watch Max King kick 10 now. But just to finish off the Simmo stuff, the other thing about people wanting to sack Simmo is it is almost impossible. I think we've explained this. 2.5 years to run his contract. It's at least a $2 million payout for him. I know they negotiated down, so it may only be $1.5 million. But then it's a 200% penalty on this soft cap when you go over the soft cap. So the payout could be anywhere between... The cost could be anywhere between 3 and 7 million to move Simmo.
So,
and then you've got to pay the new bloke.
Devil's advocate hat on at the moment. They've got 50 million plus in cash reserves.
Yeah, but I know that. But any businessman, we're not businessmen, but anyone would tell you just don't blow 5 mil.
Okay.
And particularly when you you bringing in, Pikey would have to come in and be paid.
Pikey, you've mentioned Pikey.
Well, if it. Say it was Pike.
Don Pike.
He would have to come in on $300,000 for the first year and second year, and then they'd back end his contract to try to get around this whole thing.
So
but what would it be in Pikey's interest to go through all the pain of 2 more years?
I don't think anyone
Dean
would
Cox might. Dean Cox
is and Jared Scofield's in the background. I'm not suggesting they're...
Jamie Graham might risk
I'm not suggesting they're putting their hand up.
No.
Adam Simpson is the incumbent.
But
they are the people out there who are being mentioned as possible future coaches of any club, let alone the Eagles.
But we're just saying, who would take the risk? Pike wouldn't take that risk.
I wouldn't put my hand up for that at the moment.
Because you wouldn't survive the rebuild.
No.
Wouldn't you?
You might actually. With someone like Sam Mitchell's a different. I mean, he's as long as you know where you're going, and I think we know where they're going now. It's going to be a long-term
bump
fix.
Along the bottom for 2 years.
If you do appoint someone in the short term, you've got to be prepared to say we're giving them the long term. You know, we're going to give them some time because this is going to take a bit of. You know, so
I reckon that Simmo's doing them a favour hanging around. That's my view. And as far as the board goes, a lot of my friends are on the board, and so I'm in a sort of position where I can probably comment on this. Ben White's an amazing guy. Obviously, Rowan Jones. I think they probably need to get some more footy on there, and I'm thinking they need to send the SOS to John Worsfold. I think they need Woosha. I think they need Woosha on the board. I don't know why he's not on the board. If not Woosha, they need to send the SOS to Chris Judd. Judd needs to get on the board, even if he just works from Melbourne, you know, does it on Zoom, comes over a couple of things. He would not pay any favourites. He would come in and go, bang, boys, this is what you need. Then there's Brennan or Evans or Glenn Bartlett from, you know, he was the chairman of the Melbourne Footy Club, spent 8 years rebuilding them, got them to position where they won the premiership. You know, he's an ex-Eagle. I think they got to tap into that sort of stuff. I'm not sure. I'm not saying sack the board or anything like that. A lot of the people in there are absolutely fantastic. But I think they maybe need to get some of these footy people. They've always held off, haven't they, Quarters? They've always resisted having powerful past players on there. That hasn't been their style. There was more of a business board rather than a football board. But now maybe it's the time to pivot.
I think any board you need a divergence of interest. You need a variety of backgrounds, but I think you definitely need some footy in there.
And because
now.
And you know what? In a business sense, you're right. In a business sense, they've done so well. They've got 60 mil in the bank. So when you attack Nisbet, it's sort of like, well, his part of the job is actually the footy side hasn't looked after.
The currency is wins and losses. I won't buy that.
No, but I'm just talking about in terms of a business. He's run a very good business.
Yeah, he has. But off the field, he has.
Yeah, off the field.
No one's questioning that.
No,
off the field, they're well set up for the future. But their currency is wins and losses. You ask a member whether they care diddly squat about how much money they got in the bank. They don't. They care about... And to be quite frank, that was the worst performance I've seen from a WA team ever. at the weekend.
That's their worst performance ever. Yeah.
I mean, that's
way beyond that. You were
unacceptable.
there
It's
at the Windy
below AFL standard.
Now take yourself back to the Windy Hill day. Was it worse than that day at Windy Hill when I was playing?
That was the day they tied down the windsock, wasn't it?
The day we lost up by 140.
I was there that day. Yeah.
142 points.
One goal kicked and it was Louis.
That was the record. It got broken by this weekend.
Yep.
Yeah. So
by
you were
some
there,
margin.
It did. I know. They didn't just break it. They smashed the out of it. So
now the concern is.
Can you think back to that day, 1989?
Remember it very well.
Did we look as bad as those blokes?
No. You didn't.
We didn't.
Because I thought you looked
something.
as if you were having a crack, and it was a bit wet and muddy.
Oh, it's horrible.
But it looked as though you were having a crack. I can't say the same at the weekend.
We weren't playing on a postage stamp, though.
The Windy Hill. I've got to say, it is concerning. I think it goes to another level, Barra, when you have commentators from the East, and I'm not saying they're always right, but there's been a lot of it, and clubs starting to question the integrity of the competition. So you get the Eagles twice, you're vying for it. Sydney's percentage went up 15 points. Adelaide's percentage went up 10 points. Mate, is that good enough in this competition? Surely the AFL, who've said nothing, must be concerned about this at the moment.
Well, to back up your comment, 12 of the 18 teams with a percentage of 100 plus. It's the first time it's ever happened beyond round 15. And guess why that is? Because they're playing the West Coast Eagles.
There you go.